So, yeah. So,
ooh.
Yes, ooh, yes.
This is serious. How about the pilot?
Yeah.
What did you feel? What did the cast feel when so much stuff is set up in the pilot and they pull back from it so fast? The Maquis and personal conflicts and all that.
Yeah. What did people think? Wow, I don't. The actors, yeah. Yeah, I think that first season or two, honestly, there was a lot of confusion about who these characters were, to be honest. I think they came into it, the writers in the studio came into it with certain expectations. I don't think they were so successful in the early going, and they were just throwing anything in the kitchen sink at it to try to fix it. So, one thing I do recall is all of the actors then, because we were confused about, are we supposed to, do we like each other? Are we friendly? Are we supportive? Are we getting along? The Maquis, do we, how does this crew work together? So because of all those questions that started coming up, because I think the studio and the writers were a little at a loss, let's say, to put it politely. They were at a loss for really what the show was. That I think what happened was we actually, the actors had an impact on the direction of the show. Like my character, if you look at the pilot in the early episodes, he was not a very nice guy. He was rude to people. He had a chip on his shoulder. He seemed to be a real womanizer in an unattractive way. And I think, like I said, I'm kind of a juvenile about things. I think my sense of humor that I brought to the set and to the writers, they started, I would suggest things, or I'd add moments that were a little lighter in tone, that they started going, oh, this guy can be fun and funny and charming in kind of a light comedy sort of way, or he can, so they'd write in those sarcastic comments, or they'd write in relationships that I think the actors were able to encourage in the writers. So I think, yeah, I think we had an impact on things. Kate Mulgrew, I know, had a lot of thoughts. Bob Picardo had a lot of thoughts. So the characters grew out of the actors' suggestions, because I think they were lost.
Yeah, the Maquis got modified, but you were the one that they both hated.
Yeah, everybody hated me. I hated me. I was a jerk. No, honestly, I thought that character was a jerk. I said, I told the writer, if you keep writing this character this way, you might as well write him off, because nobody's going to like him. He's just not a nice guy, and we have to find something. I used to ride motorcycles, and I had an old Harley Davidson. So I suggested to them, I said, what if Tom's he loves motorcycles, and that's his holodeck thing, and I'll bring my bike in, and we'll go shoot it. And so that's where the car thing came out of, was this kind of retro suggestion. And then the car thing led to the Captain Proton, so it all kind of grew out of conversations we were having very early about who these people are, and kind of reimagining all of these characters as being a little more interesting and likable than they were initially. So, yeah. Yes, sir.
Hey, I know how Tim Russ and Garrett Wong were big pranksters, and you were talking about your juvenile behavior and stuff on the show. Now, what are some of your pranks that you have pulled on the show?
Some of my pranks. Well, one thing that wasn't a prank, but became quite funny, is I seem to break props accidentally. I think I hold the record. I think I even beat Jonathan Frakes, who was the previous record holder, for destroying tricorders that were very expensive. I would drop them, or from great heights. Like in Parturition, I remember there was a set we had to climb up on this cave set that was probably 20 or 30 feet in the air. I'd already broken a dozen tricorders, and they were expensive. The ones that we had to make were $800 or $900, maybe $1,000 a tricorder. And I'm up there on this 20-foot set, and we're talking, and I pull the tricorder out, and it just goes flying out of my hand, and 20 feet down to the stage. And it became a running joke, like I was in klutz and couldn't handle a prop. They'd always give me the rubber, thing as long as they could. And it was, that was not an intentional joke. It just became a running gag. I was very clumsy breaking things. I remember one time I had a cold, and it was, we had the whole gang in the briefing room or something, and I had his cold. Everybody was saying, stay away from Robbie, don't get his cold. There's a lot of germ jokes. So I went in the makeup trailer for something, and I noticed on the jar of glue that they would put the prosthetics on, that it had kind of dried on the outside and it looked like snot. It was just kind of dried, so I thought, that's a fun thing. So I kind of peeled off a couple of those and I put it here. And I got Vaseline and and I told the assistant directors, I said, wait until everybody's on, let me know, and then I'm going to come in last minute. So everybody came in, and they said, everybody's in there, so I ran in last minute. I'm like, oh, sorry guys, I'm just cold, you know, and I was like touching it and everything, and I'm like, okay, and I'm trying to touch everybody. It was the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. They were freaking out. They thought I had snot rolling out everywhere. So that was a pretty good one. The whole room just, oh my God. That was good. We had running fart jokes between Ethan Phillips, Tim Russ, and myself. It was, you could call it a competition if you like. But we had some pretty unforgettable moments in tight quarters with gaseous anomalies that I would say all of us were very talented, the three of us, very talented gas dwellers. I don't know, we just had a lot of fun. Sometimes it was just silly stuff, I don't know. Just silly. Yeah, it was silly. What else? Yes, ma'am?
Since you have children, if they were interested in getting into the business, what would be your help them?
If my children wanted to get into the business, what would be my advice? Yeah, I would say stay out of production, meaning like directing, actual filming, because those hours are very, very long. And I would say get out of acting, my old job, because that's not very reliable. So I just say get out of it in general. Don't do it. Yeah, it's good to be like an executive at a network or something. You know, you come in at 9, you tell everybody how they should do it, and then you go home for dinner. That's a good job. Yeah, I just say stay out of it, honestly. I don't think my kids are going to get into it, though. My daughter's in the fashion business. She's working at Vogue right now, so that's pretty cool. And my son wants to be Jack Kerouac or something. So he'll just wander the road. I don't know what he's going to do. And yeah, my youngest, he may go in the business. He kind of said, well, if I can't get a job anywhere else, I'll just call Dad and get a job. He's like a smart guy. Yeah, I don't know if any of them are going to get into it. I don't know how I got into it. I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, you know, very, yay, Atlanta, Georgia. Yeah, I grew up, you know, my family was all kind of country from North Carolina, country farmers and, you know, tobacco farmers and watermelon farmers. I mean, not very sophisticated, fancy people. My dad was into, he was the first one to kind of leave that farming country. Got an engineering degree at NC State and became like a computer guy back in the 60s when it was time sharing and it was big mainframes and nobody had their own computers and big companies would tell people how to use computers. So he did that. That kind of got me, you know, he was a sci-fi fan and that sort of got my mind imagining bigger things than farming and, you know. So definitely, like he was a big fan of the original series, my dad, so I remember, you know, watching that. It was so theatrical and exciting. We watched a show called Space 1999. Remember that show? Yeah, love that show. So some of that stuff kind of got my mind going into bigger worlds, you know. I think science fiction and fantasy is really great for people that way because it allows you to imagine more than maybe your own little smaller world you're in at the moment. And those kind of dreams can lead to opportunities. Like me, I mean, I didn't, you know, coming from Cary, North Carolina, a little town, and ending up out here, you know, driving to Warner Brothers every day. Sometimes I can't believe it. I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, this is what I do, you know. So it's pretty cool. Yeah. Who else? Did you have a question? Oh, you got it. Okay. I felt like I kept jumping over you. I felt I was feeling. I'm also very guilty feeling. I have a lot of guilt.